Oh, hey, what's up, ballers? You know, I always watch those record store haul videos where people just show all the records that they picked up at the record store. Well, me and Mrs. Ball went to Mojo Vinyl with Ballette yesterday, and we got some great records, so I thought I would show you guys. And Mojo Vinyl's a cool store. It's a little house with nothing but records in it. And they have these big record paintings outside, and they change every once in a while. They're really cool. I didn't film at the shop, but let me know in the comments if you think I should go there and ask if I can interview the owner. Maybe it would be a cool thing to go to different record stores and show them to people. Anyway, back to business. Let's check out the records we picked up. Mrs. Ball found some really good ones. Firstly, she got these two John Cougar Mellencamp records. They're both absolutely phenomenal. They're peak John Cougar. Both feature a string of hits on side A. The production's really good. You know, I don't know a lot about John Mellencamp, but I started looking into him while we were listening to these records last night. And these were his first breakthrough records, but he'd been working for a few years before this. And it reminded me of the process, they used to have of artist development, where, they would put some years into developing an artist and their image and their sound, and, they'd work with the artist to engineer some great hits out of their voice and their vision. And I think John Cougar is a great example of that. And also, Mrs. Ball has a knack for picking up cheap records that are mint and unplayed original pressings. She did that with these. It looks like they were never played. No spindle marks. Good job, honey. Another mint find from Mrs. Ball, Bebe Lestrange from Heart. An early pressing of the 1980 hit record from Ann and Nancy Wilson. Singles were Bebe Lestrange and Even It Up, which had horns from Tower of Power. We haven't cleaned and listened to this record yet, but we have a number of Heart records. We have Dreamboat Annie, Little Queen, and we have their 1980 Greatest Hits /Live record. I think that this is going to be a top 3 album from them, so we're excited to check it out. Ballers, if you're not down with Heart, listen to them. Give them a chance. Some people consider them to be the female Led Zeppelin. This is another one, like I said, in nearly mint condition. Doesn't even have any spindle marks. And I also picked up this funky 1980 record called Ultra Wave from Funkadelic bassist Bootsy Collins. Bootsy also played with James Brown's band in the early 70s, I believe. I spotted a sample on this from Bullies on the Block by Freestyle Fellowship. The chorus hook on that is lifted from the Bootsy Collins song It's a Musical. This record is really cool. It's got the same kind of One Nation Under a Groove type bass lines, P-Funk style. The record has Bootsy's spoken word wisdom, vocals from Brides of Funkenstein, has horns from Horny Horns with Fred Wesley and Maceo Parkers and others. It's just a great group of players delivering what I think is meant to be a deeply funky response to the era of New Wave. It's Ultra Wave. It's good stuff. If you like P-Funk, I highly recommend this. Ballette picked up The Doors, the Rhino repress of the first Doors record. So cool that a young kid's getting into records, and she's a huge Doors fan. So adding this to her growing collection was a no-brainer. Worth noting, this has the censored version of Break On Through that was on the original album. I'm not sure if there's a version of this album on vinyl which has the uncensored version of Break On Through. If you know of that, please comment below. And here's another one I picked out, In the Wake of Poseidon, which is the second album by prog rock giants King Crimson. Now, admittedly, I don't know a lot of King Crimson's catalog, so I'm trying to get some of the notable records. But I knew this one. I'd heard it before. I remembered it's really dope, and it has a lot of good grooves, especially the song Cat Food is really cool. And it was a good deal, so I snagged it, and I'm super glad I did. It's funky, it's sometimes heavy, sounds like Sabbath almost at one moment. It's very dynamic, with some insane time signatures. It's a wild journey, which is well evoked by this really slick album cover, filled with fantastical creatures. You get a feeling that each of the mythical beings is represented by some passage on the record. I scored this original 1970 pressing for like $18. It had some crackle in the soft bits, but after 2 cleanings it sounds a lot better. If you have another King Crimson's album to recommend, please put it in the comments, what's the next one I should get. I also picked up this Byrds Greatest Hits record, which originally came out in 1967. It's actually the best-selling record they ever put out. It went platinum a couple years after it came out. I'm not sure the exact year of this pressing, but it looks pretty old. I had this album in the glory days of the 1990s when you could score vinyl for a few bucks a pop at flea markets, and the selection was sometimes pretty great. This one's got Dylan covers, Turn, 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 Mr. Spaceman, 8 Miles High. It's really everything you could want out of a Byrds album. It's one of those greatest hits records that stands on its own as a great listening experience. I'm not above a well-done greatest hits. Speaking of that era, I also got this copy of Deliver by the Mamas and the Papas. It has Creek Alley on it and Dedicated to the One I Love, 2 very solid tracks. I don't really know the rest of the record, but I'm looking forward to getting into it. Creek Alley is really their best song, so I'm totally on board anyway, already. It's worth the price of admission in my book. And Mrs. Ball picked up Journey's 9th album, Raised on Radio, from 1986. That's the last Journey record with the iconic Steve Perry singing. And Perry took full control of the band, apparently, firing the founding bassist Ross Valerie and drummer Steve Smith. They were replaced with session players. It seems like the band was basically imploding. Steve Perry's expressed regret about how he did things, and it's worth mentioning that both of those guys returned to the band in 1995, so they must have made amends. This record should be an interesting listen. It's like a document of a band on the brink. It has Girl Can't Help It, and I think there may be some other hits on it. That's the only one that really jumped out to me. Mrs. Ball has been gradually snagging Journey albums to fill out her collection, so this was a good one to get. If you dug this video, check out this playlist of all my record recommendations, and then check out this other one where I ranked all the Bob Marley records from worst to best. Some people thought it was cool, some people got annoyed by it. What can you do?